welcome. Today we're going to run through a concept or referred to as servant leadership. You may or may not be familiar with this. If not, oh, thanks, Mohammed. I've just seen your thumbs up pop in there. If you're not familiar with it, well, great. It'll be a first introduction. If you are familiar with it, well, then it will just be a good refresher for you. Now, what I'm going to do today is do at least the best of my ability to try and link it to our current situation. Now, for many of you, as you can see, those of you who do have your cameras on, we are moving away from everyone working from home to now transitioning, now from a Dubai government point of view. I can see there's some people here from other countries, but in Dubai, we can go up to now 50% of our staff capacity back into the office. So we're slowly moving back into, should we say, normality, but I'll use that word carefully because I'm not 100% too sure what that looks like. Yeah, I think we will be going back into some form of new normal. But what I'm going to do today is kind of, like I said, do what I can, given it, because everyone's situations and circumstances are different. But it's to kind of take the fact that you are still involved in leading teams virtually, and you will still have some people coming in and into the office as well. Maybe there's a rota system, maybe some jobs are more critical that they're back in the office sooner. Maybe I know some of you out there, I can see, some people from certain organizations that are already back out, even going to client meetings, which is a major step forward. A good one, for me, we have to get the economy moving as long as you're taking certain precautions. For me, there's still no reason why you can't do that stuff on Zoom, but if in your industry, getting into a specific building setup, seeing a certain person face-to-face makes a difference, then obviously that's the way that needs to go. So servant leadership is the concept today, and thank you for joining us. We've been running these, and we've been having anywhere from 80 to up to 140, 150 people on these, which has been nice, for us, and also that's been relatively consistent, which means that we've been doing an okay job. I'll accept that as some positive feedback. I was expecting a little bit of a dip in the numbers today. We're down at 36, 37. Someone else has just joined, but that's still a good number. Now, those of you that have joined our sessions before, and I can see a number of you that have, please feel free to engage with us, because I do like to sometimes just get a little bit of input from you. We do use an online system called Poll Everywhere. And what we'll ask you to do is just interact with us a little bit on that to give us some feedback and some interaction. If I was running a classroom session, I'd simply ask what's called an overhead question, and I'd get some feedback from people. So we use it to do that and build some interaction. Now, in the chat function, if you're not too sure what that is on Zoom at the bottom, Ben has already given you the link, which is pollev.com/ignite train 999, and it's gone in twice to everybody. Look, what I'm going to ask you to do, if you didn't pick that up when you're in the waiting room, I'm going to ask you to go to that URL now. You can do it on your phone or any other device, or you can simply open another a browser tab on your laptop if you're working on your laptop. Just and Ben's showing that it's live. To kind of kick us off, it's not directly all about servant leadership, my first one, but I've just put out 5 questions in a little bit of a survey. If you can take a moment to answer them, that would be fantastic. But really what I'm trying to understand is, as we start transitioning back into, going into the workplace, whether you as an organization or as an individual retain some working from home or some flexibility, that would be amazing, of course. But as we do move back into the workplace, I'd be interested to get your thoughts and feedback. Now, some of the questions there are directly related to, or actually, I think there's only one. There's one question in the survey, which is a direct question about you as a leader. Now, if you are not a leader of people, don't worry, just put in there NA, or I don't know if you can leave it blank, but just leave it not applicable. But if I can just get a few of you to go in there and have a look at that. It is live, it is running, so yes, it's good to go. Whether you have attended any of our sessions before, but one of the first ones we did was about leading virtual teams. This was, good grief, maybe 7 or 8 weeks ago now, and it was a big question, a big demand we had from our client base. So we put this together, and essentially what we used is this model. Well, it's actually a team leadership model, but specifically relevant for leading virtual teams. And there's 4 leadership responsibilities that you're going to have as a leader. The first one is to build trust, grow cohesion in your team. Next one is to make sure that you link teamwork to clear goals. Then it's about managing the workload, but that means skill development, that means capacity, making sure you're on top of where people are and they're not working 15, 16 hours a day. And I'm sure you heard lots of reports of that. You might have even experienced it because people had a problem, and maybe still do, shutting down from, well, I've been at my dining room table all day, I might as well just carry on, okay? Or feeling obliged to carry on. And then the last thing is about removing barriers from the team. And there, if you look at my slides, you'll see it for the first time. This is where servant leadership really does come into the fore. Now, interestingly enough, when I've talked about servant leadership before in live sessions, I've actually had some pushback or kickback from people simply because of the terminology. How can I phrase this without being rude? At least, you know, rude in terms of expressing my opinion of it. A lot of people believe that the term servant is a weakness. I promise you 100% it is not. If you get to a stage as a leader where you are able to understand that your job is to really make the work that your teams are doing as easy as possible. And if you can serve them by removing barriers, making things easy, offering them development, giving them your time when you need it, offering them support and guidance and communicating clearly, that's what we're talking about. Yes, the role of a servant leadership isn't to dictate. It is not to direct workflow, right? That's another part of leadership that you'll have to incorporate into your skill set. But the mindset of a servant leader is basically getting in every day or getting to your dining room table every day and asking the question, what can I do to help my teams achieve their goals today? Because guess what? If your team's achieving, guess who is achieving? You. So sometimes, and I do say sometimes, I would say probably half of the time that we have this, I'll have someone kind of raise that as an issue. There may be a cultural element to that. I don't want to speculate on that too much because I haven't done any particular deep research on it. It might just be a personal belief set. But so the first thing I want you to do is kind of get over the word of servant leadership being a negative. It is very much a positive piece, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to take you through, you know, what I believe the 4 key elements of delivering a servant leadership mindset into your workplaces. But I'm also going to do that by linking to the fact that you are returning to work softly, softly, catchy monkey, as the expression goes. So look, here's the first thing I'm going to ask you to do. I'm going to ask you to think about the best leader or manager, if you want to use that term, that you've ever had. And what I'm going to ask you to do on our poll everywhere is I'm going to ask you, I'll just make sure this one is active. I'm going to ask you to go in and give me a characteristic or a couple of characteristics that you believe made them the best leader. And please bear in mind, what I'm really looking for here is behavior. Yeah. So what is it about what they did, how they acted that made you feel, I love working for this person, or I feel completely engaged in what I'm doing here. So if I'll just give you a minute or two just to once again jump onto the poll everywhere. Perfect. Okay, we're starting to get some responses in already, which definitely shows me it's live. Okay, trust, flexible, supportive, transparent, encouraging, confidence. And with confidence, I'm going to make the assumption that that's confidence in you and your abilities to get your job done. If that's not what you mean by confidence, please feel free to open up your microphone and share with me. Leading by example, 100%. It is literally the leadership style that you want to role model as much as possible. And if you've got someone that really cares about their people, and delivers against that, you will see those behaviors 100%. Okay. My dad always used to say, obviously jokingly, do as I say, not as I do. But I've just turned into another version of him. So that just shows you how effective that expression is. So yeah, role modeling behaviors is 100% the way to go. Empowerment, really important. Compassion. I've seen empowerment there a couple of times. Positive thinking. As long as that's demonstrated, and also, you know, unlike me, maybe there's also a little bit of a rein in terms of realism. That's a really nice thing to do. Clear vision, 100%. Vulnerability, if you're talking about trust, that's what underpins trust in a working environment. I saw a good one come up there. They were human in their decisions. Okay, I love the fact that what we're doing there is we're thinking about other people. And not only that, if you work for that person, I'm sure that's something they never sat down and told you, but you've obviously picked that up through their behavior and their actions, the things they said and the things they did. Not shitting with the team. That's really tickled me. I'm not too sure if that's exactly how that was supposed to be written. Okay. Yeah, okay. I don't know if it's on the team or with, okay. Challenge you to perform better. That's a really nice one as well, because the best leaders, and also I can speak from my own experience, the best leaders that I've ever had 100% push me. And sometimes I did leave meetings a little bit frustrated and sometimes a little bit angry, because I thought I'd done a good job there. But, 24 hours later, when I've gone back and reviewed it, I realized that actually I could have done more. I could have done better. It could have been that slightly more quality in my work as well. So, but that's something in the way it's delivered, which is really important. There's loads of really good stuff coming in here as well. Okay. Consistent, compassion. There's a few things that are coming in consistently. Okay. So look, let me ask you this. If you are a leader of a team, if you are not a leader of a team, but you aspire to leader of the team, I'm 99.999 reoccurring % sure that everything on this slide that we're showing you at the moment is how you would like to be described and perceived by your team. So if you've ever gone through some kind of 360-degree feedback, these are the kind of words that I'm sure you'd love to be listening or seeing back on your report. The problem is that may not be the case, and that's not necessarily detrimental to you. It's because we're human beings and we have a whole range of things that are going on in our head. Yes, we have to make sure our people are empowered and we create trust and we create an open and honest environment. But there is also times where you will feel pressure to get the job done. And sometimes that pressure will convert into behavior that lead or shows to your team that actually some of these things aren't consistent. Don't beat yourself up about that. What you've got to understand is leadership is not a fixed state. It is a growing, fluid state. You don't just get promoted, and that's, by the way, not the definition of a leader, but you don't get given a team, for example, and then all of a sudden you're a leader and that's you for the rest of your life. The best leaders have a growth mindset and are constantly developing, constantly looking to grow themselves, constantly looking to grow their people. And we'll come back to a little bit about that later. Cool. Look, thank you for that. I love that slide. I'd like to do one more. So if you can just give me a moment to refresh this, because it's the same question, just with a 180 spin on it. I'm going to ask you the same thing, but I'd like you to consider not the best leader you've ever had, but I'd like you to tell me the worst leader or manager you've ever had. And I'm really interested to see how it's activated, so it should be live, how these come out. Now, what I'd like you to do once again is really reflect on your own experience. Don't just think, oh, what does a bad manager look like or act like? I'd really like you to draw on your own experience. And when you maybe stop crying about your job or the leadership environment you're in, I'd like to see what comes out here. So look, straight away, we've got like 7 or 8 responses. I'm sorry, I can't wait to. We've got 7 or 8 responses on there that are very powerful words, right? Okay, negative energy. Now, once again, I'd love to define what that looked like in actual behavior, in terms of what that person was doing. But once again, I'm not going to ask you to do that. But I'm sure we understand what that means. Negative energy, no support, political. I've said before on these calls, I've worked for some pretty big organizations. I spent a lot of time in AXA, which for the size of the organization, certainly when the part of the group that I was in 20 odd years ago, was one of the best organizations I worked for. There was some red tape, as you will find, but it wasn't necessarily tolerated. And that was very much kind of led by the leaders of the business there. But yeah, worked with some very large organizations. So I won't name any other. You can always check out my LinkedIn profile to see who they are. And politics is one of the reasons I really struggle with the concept of having to go back into a corporate environment. Negative energy, jealous. Oh, okay, so now you've got people that think, okay, and by the way, this is something that's real. You will get insecure people in leadership positions who will see people in their team that they perceive to be better than them and see them as a threat. And they will actively, sometimes unconsciously, but actively act against that person to keep them down. That's not a place you want to be. A shitstorm on legs. That is one of the best expressions I've ever seen. Okay, that should be the name of a book. Okay, so now we've got the worst leader is one, shitting with the team. Take things for granted, justice, put up my screen. Command and control. Okay, once again, command and control is not what I would describe as a leadership mindset or behavior. That's very much, kind of autocratic as the leadership style that gets put under, but it's dangerous. Sometimes if you've got high risk, really, I mean a serious time crunch, there is a health and safety issue. Sometimes it's the way to go. Sometimes it's the way to go. But as with anything in life, if you're constantly using the same style and you're expecting to get different results out of different people all the time, you're going to end up sorely mistaken. Okay. Manipulative, negative energy, a bully, jealous, low EQ, so emotional intelligence, a power tripper, shouting. I won't, you know, I'm not even going to comment on that. Very political, oppressive, narcissist. Okay, take things for granted, never respect your employees, micromanager. So once again, let me kind of flip that same statement onto you. If you are a leader of people, or you aspire to be a leader of people, and you were to get a 360 assessment back and see the comments about you from your team, I would 100%, not even 99.99 reoccurring, 100% guarantee that anybody in this call would be mortified to see any of those words describe them. Okay, it's certainly, and once again, I'd like to think that I wouldn't be described like this as a leader of a team, but maybe. But here's the thing: if I am like this, the first thing I want to do is tell me that. I need to know that. Then that'll need to sink in with me and land with me a little bit before I can act on it. But the first thing is to really go through it. No, you are not. Okay. That just came in. I'm hoping that's a nice little bit of positive feedback from one of my teams. So there we go. So look, thank you very much. So I like to think about this because we've all had experiences, even if you've only had 1 or 2 jobs. Maybe you've even had the same leader. I'm sure you would have seen other people in the business where we can see people that engage us, engage the teams, that make us feel valued, that empower us, that give us opportunities to grow, to develop. That's how we stay engaged. I can never remember the exact percentage, but companies like Gallup and Hay, huge amount of research that show a massive percentage of people that leave jobs don't leave because of the job, they leave because of their direct line manager. Now you look at some of the words on that screen, that's not the environment that I want to work in at all. So I completely understand where that comes from. For those of you that have experienced these, and that may be all of us in the room, I do apologize. And if we could get hold of those people, I would really like to think that if they were aware of that they wouldn't be proud of themselves and they'd look to change it, okay? I can't obviously say that for sure. I would just like to give, should we say, human nature the benefit of the doubt. Okay, awesome. Look, thank you for that. There's some really nice stuff there, and I might draw that down as well as a little bit of research as well. So that's a nice piece. Okay, so look, we've just talked about all those things, and one of the things I talk about is, and once again, we talk about surveys and research groups like Hay. Why is servant leadership a really important toolkit, or part of your toolkit to have? And I'm not going to labor the point, but I will tell you it is a tool. You use it at the right time in the right place with the right people. But for me, it's the mindset that you want to kind of adopt all the time. It's almost like, for me, as a leader, it should be your default setting, but it's still one that you're not going to apply in every situation. The analogy I always use, so if you've heard it before, I apologize, but you don't go out and, like, for example, I did a few weeks ago, and buy a pizza slice, and then you go home and throw away all your knives. You keep it in the drawer with all your knives. You use your pizza slice when it's appropriate to use it, with a pizza, as the title suggests. And that's the same thing with leadership styles. The more you expand your, shall we say, portfolio of skills around your leadership set, makes it a really easy transition for you to step between styles in the right situation for the right people in the right time. So here's what Hay Group found in a relatively recent survey. Employees who are fully engaged in their company and their specific job are 43% more productive. Now, I'm going to be quite crude with my maths there and say, right, well, I'm going to round that up to 50% because it makes it easier to make my point. That means for every month these people work, they're delivering 6 weeks of productive work. Yeah. What that means is the other 50% of people involved, for every 4 weeks they work, are only producing 2 weeks of productive work. Now, if you're a statistician, you can challenge me on exactly how that works, and you would probably be correct. But essentially, what we're looking at here is, if as a leader, my responsibility is to engage in people in their work, to make them feel valued, and to do what I can to make it easier to do their jobs. If I do that, and I can increase their productivity, but even if you half that and say 20%, that means instead of 5 days a week, I'm getting 6 days a week out of people. And yes, they're still going home on time. They're still having a good work, a lot of work-life balance, which is what we're aiming for. Now, isn't that something that every business would suddenly value? Now, if you are a leader and you're demonstrating those kind of behaviors and you're able to get more productivity out of your team, what does that to say about you and your career and your advancement opportunities? And this is where I struggle with the mindset, as you saw some of those negative comments come through. People who hold people back, that deliberately block their career paths. That's not the way to do it. I've talked about her before, but my best manager that I ever had, and she was actually my manager's manager at the time. Her name was Caroline Taylor. Hello, Caroline, if you ever watch this. And I worked for AXA, and she was amazing like that. She gave you enough rope to hang yourself, right? Which meant she offered you trust. You got, don't get me wrong, you got feedback when you needed it, and she helped you grow. And I really felt that out of all the large corporate roles that I've had, that's where I felt the most valued. I offered the most productivity, if for want of a better word. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Caroline will call me in a minute and say, no, that's not the case. But that's a feeling that I had. So look, the key to this is not you. It's about removing your ego from the situation, and it's thinking about other people first. Now, I will tell you, there will be people on the call where that is their default setting. Those of you who are familiar with our jigsaw tool, you know, we have a green set of behaviors in there, which is about people. Now that will be a default setting for some of you. For other people who might be what we refer to as red, which is task and action orientated, the people aspect might not be your default setting. It's about getting the job done, which means the way you show up and the way you're programmed to show up is just going to be different. So for some people, this is easier to lean into than other people, than others. But the important thing is being aware and being able to lean into it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you a couple of questions here. Once again, just on the poll, everyone. Not necessarily ask you the questions. I'm going to build it into the flow of the program. So let me just kind of first, actually, let me just go forward one. I'll show you this one first. When you go through, and there's a huge amount of literature on servant leadership, so please feel free to get hold of some. But one thing that I find consistently is a lot of what they refer to as important characteristics of leaders. And I'll just run through them very quickly with you in my kind of self-built word cloud. First and foremost, and there is a kind of a ranking to this. So if you're going to do one thing, that's the thing I'm going to tell you to do. Build your self-awareness. If you don't understand what your default settings are, what your behaviors are, and how they impact other people, I'm going to say this carefully, you probably shouldn't be in a leadership role in the first place. Yep. Being self-aware, understanding your strengths, understanding your limitations and your areas of development is going to make a massive difference. If you know, I'll tell you, one of the things that I have a real problem with is things like attention to detail. If you show me a balance sheet, look, I have a business, I have to look at it, but my God, does it bore me? It really takes a huge amount of energy. So what I do is I lean on people in my team who I know who have those strengths. And I'd like to think that I, do a good job in terms of making them feel empowered around that as well. And I 100% trust their decision. So I'd like to think I'm relatively self-aware. My profile is quite well clarified anyway, so it's quite easy for me to do that. But self-awareness in terms of how you come across to other people, particularly those you lead, is critical, okay? Next thing, conceptualization. So people that are able to think about concepts and then communicate those clearly to the team in terms of how you're going to work and how you're going to move forward with your business, okay? Healing. This is a really interesting one, and I really wanted to kind of just stop and take a moment on this. Now, at this point in history, this is, and maybe should have been number one on my list. This is about considering other people's well-being over anything else, Now, when we talk about well-being, there's lots of models, but what we do is we kind of focus at Ignite on three core pillars, which is your social well-being, which is something that we've all been taken away from, being locked up. And, it's only recently now we can start going to the malls again and seeing other people out and going to the beach and all these kind of things. But even just interacting with friends has been greatly restricted. So that is a massive piece which would have been impacted. Next thing is physical. There's been lots of funny memes that have gone around over the last 8 weeks about being locked up. And I don't know if you've seen it, there's a great one. And for those of you that haven't seen the Avengers film, then I apologize, but there's two pictures of Thor, or the actor Chris Hemsworth. And one of them, he's just ripped, where, those guys at Bay, you met him, right? You know what he's like. And then on the other side, it's like in Endgame, he was really fat. He'd just been sitting in this village drinking beer for a year. So it has two pictures of me, and it says, there's only two ways that you're coming out of lockdown. So you're either training hard and you're coming out ripped, or you're sitting there eating, 5,000 calories a day. And that's a really nice thing. But so we've got social, we've got physical, But then the other thing as well, which is such an important piece for people at the moment, is mental well-being. Now, all of those things are strongly connected, right? So it's not like if you're physically fit that your mental state is 100% correct as well. Does it help? Yes, of course it helps. Does it help if you're working out and seeing friends? Does it help your mental state? Yes. But you can also do some activities to work on your mental state as well. So as a leader, one of the first things, certainly for me, is I'm kind of, as we're heading back into the office this week, or at least, you know, we have a 50% rota, is what's the mental state of my team? How are people doing? You know, and I like to think as a team, we're small, there's 6 of us. So I think we've done a pretty good job as a team in just making sure that we've been looking out for each other. Next thing is foresight. This is really about being able to spot and identify problems and opportunities up the road, and being able to get your team and yourself prepared for them. Next thing, the commitment to the growth of people. That's a really critical piece to servant leadership. If I come back to my manager, Caroline, kind of her ethos was, I don't know if you've actually stated this, but certainly the way it came across to me was, it was like her job to get people promoted above her. I don't think I ever saw that happen. But for me, that was a fantastic mindset. I never saw anyone pushed down. I never saw anyone's ambitions quashed. If they went to her with an idea of something they could do with the business or the team, or carve out a new project, a new idea, she was always very open to it. Had to have a business case behind it, and you had to make an impact. But very, very open for you to you know, getting your head above the parapet and exposing yourself effectively. Listening. This is something we talk about all the time, and everyone goes, yeah, I listen well, I'm an active listener. But as you know, we generally aren't. We phase out. Our brains are time machines. We are either in the future or in the past. We are very rarely in the moment. And true listening really does require that mindfulness piece, to be in the moment, focusing on what that person says. If you're ever with someone, you're not sure they're listening to you, just do one of those things where you kind of lose your train of thought, or and then go back to them and say, sorry, what was I saying? And see how long it takes them to recover what you were saying. You'll soon find out if they're paying attention to you. And once again, there might be a piece for feedback there or some comments. Okay. Couple more. Stewardship. So this is really about making sure that you own your own area, but also making sure that people own theirs, so that you are taking accountability for your work, but also that you're holding people accountable for what they're supposed to deliver. It's a really important piece. Persuasion. Now, please, please, please don't get this mixed up with manipulation. We are talking about getting people into a place where you might want them to take on a new skill set or a new task that they don't want to do because they don't feel comfortable with their skill sets, or they're not confident enough to take it on. This is where the art of persuasion and influence come in, okay? I'm not going to force someone to do something. Now, some situations I might have to say, Bennett's on my screen, so I'm going to pick on Bennett. Bennett, I need you to do this. And he'll be going, I've never done it before. There's no support. How do I do this? Now, that's my job to try and pair him with someone or to offer something. But if I'm on a time crunch or I'm really stuck, that might just have to happen. But it's the last thing I want to be doing to him. I don't want to be putting pressure on him or making him feel completely out of his comfort zone. Can I get him there differently? Yes. Will it take a bit more time? Probably. But will he be much more competent and confident when we actually hit that destination? Yes. And what that means then, it's then easier for me to delegate those tasks to him in the future. And also grows not just his skill set, but his ability and his confidence in himself to take on new tasks. Empathy. Ben has done a great webinar on mental well-being when he talks about empathy. I can't remember what episode it was, maybe 4 or 5. So you can always jump on our YouTube and have a look at that one as well. But empathy is really about not just thinking about how someone feels, but feeling, generating that feeling in yourself to truly empathize. And the last one there is about building community. And this is about a community feeling within your team, within your business, that you are part of something bigger, or your team members are part of something bigger than just putting numbers into a spreadsheet. Okay. And once again, I told this story before, and whether it is an urban myth, I don't know. But there's that concept of JFK touring NASA, and he asks the janitor, what do you do here? And the janitor replies, I'm helping put a man on the moon. Now that in itself, if that is true, that's amazing. You know, for someone to go, well, I am just sweeping up this puddle or I'm mopping the floor here, but to have that mindset of, well, if this doesn't happen, that guy can't do his job properly, or it impacts this guy's day, that then leads to this. That's a really nice way of thinking about how you operate. So think about what your organization's strategic goals are. Think about what you're doing today and think about how am I contributing to that and moving forward. And that's part of your linked goal setting as well. So There's 10 characteristics. But what we really find is within servant leadership, there are kind of what we call four core values or behaviors we really want you to adopt. And these are communication, availability, encouragement, and also to create opportunities for your people. This goes beyond the boundaries of just doing their job. It's about how can I grow them? How do I give them more opportunity to grow? How do I give them more opportunity to expose themselves within the business and to build their own brand? Now, whether they stay in your organization or not is irrelevant. And you may have heard these kind of conversations before. I won't name the company because it's a very well-known company, but where are we now, 2012? 16 years ago, when I first moved here, I went and saw a very big company here, local company, huge, and I guarantee you spent money with them. And I spoke to one of the heads of the leadership or the training academy, and he said to me, why? Why should I train people if they're only going to leave me in 2 years' time? Now, bear in mind, 16, 17 years ago, there was a little, I think, I could be wrong, but I think there was a more transient environment here. That people did come for 2 to 4 years. You know, when I first came here, if you met someone who'd been here for 10 years, it was like, whoa. Now it's relatively common. So that concept of why should I train and invest in these people if I know that they're going to finish their contract and disappear from my business in 2 years' time? You know, and the obvious answer to that, as I'm sure you would have heard before, is, well, what if you don't train them and they stay? Surely that's going to be more damaging to your business. So that's a really important part. So what I'm going to do, what have we got left? We've got 22 minutes, perfect timing. I'm going to take you through a couple of these 4 elements very briefly and give you some questions to ask yourself, really, in terms of how you might approach this yourself. So before we do that, can I ask you just to pop back onto our poll everywhere? Now, because we're talking about communication, the reason I've put this one on here, let me think. I think all of my questions relate now to transitioning back into the workplace in our current state. So if you're a leader of people, what you've got to understand is there's going to be people that have been working from home anywhere from 5, 9, maybe 10 weeks now. And as much as you might have done in the meantime to keep them engaged and have that focus on the bigger picture and the vision, and once again, that shared vision, it says in there, that might have dissipated somewhat. It might have been disappeared completely. So if you think now, as people are coming back into the workplace, even if they're not back in the office yet, they're prepared to come back in, what can you do as a leader of a team to address that issue, the potential loss of a shared vision? And I'd like you to think about kind of activities and behaviors that you might want to put into practice or to adopt to help people come back together very quickly to feel part of something bigger than themselves. I'll just make sure it's active. Yes, it is. I'm just going to wait a minute. Okay, one-on-one sessions. Good, good, good. Transparency. Good. I'm going to give it maybe 30 seconds for those to pop back in. Sorry about that, I just disappeared for a minute. Okay, all right, so let's have a look at some of the ideas that we've got. One thing I should have said here, there's no right or wrong. There is no right or wrong. I'm not going to say, oh, that's a great word there. Someone's just put carefully. I like that. I'm not going to sit here and go, carefully, no, you're wrong. I'm literally looking for your opinions here because, once again, we are living history, right? This is something that is unprecedented. So the way you're responding to this, as whether that's just an employee, whether you're self-employed or you work for an organization or as a team leader, is very difficult to find real prerequisites that have been set in the past. So there is no right or wrong. Okay, good. So ask why you did not do your job. Okay. Whoever wrote that, I would love you to rewrite that because I'm a little bit confused by the terminology there. Set up frequent comms plans. Absolutely. Now, ideally, that had already been happening over the last 6 to 8 weeks. Clear objective. That's a really critical one. If you've got people coming back in, what I would say is, you know, combine that with your one-on-ones, combine it with team meeting as big as you can. You know, if you've got maybe a team of 6, you've got 3 people in and 3 people at home, just get everyone into that session, you know, using some online technology as well, and have those conversations. You know, I was going to say guarantee them, but I had to think about certain industries. I think the majority of you, I would say your goalposts have moved from what you set out. Let's say your year is the beginning of, you know, 1st of Jan, and what you were set in terms of your KPIs and your targets. I should imagine they would have shifted somewhat in the last 4 or 5 months based on the current situation. Okay. So what I would suggest you do is reset those, clarify, ask yourself what's possible, ask the team what's possible. Most businesses, as you know, will be behind budget in terms of their sales budgets. And look, there is no crime or no shame to that, because that's where we all are at the moment. Okay. So it's really important that we do that. Show empathy and support one-to-one in dealing with the situation. Yes. Organize team events. Absolutely. Look, if you can't even get your team together, you know, face-to-face or physically, you can still do stuff online. You know, we've done a couple of quizzes for people already. We did one for our team. And they're good fun. I know that, you know, there's ways that we can do kind of treasure hunts with everyone at home. We ran one a couple of weeks ago, which we had people in like 9 different countries, and it's good fun. But there's ways of creating that feeling of togetherness without still being able to be physically present. That's great. Understand what purpose is for them. So that's a really nice thing. And what I do is I just roll that into another thing to say, actually ask questions, right? So this is where you're almost like your coaching conversations come into this. How are you feeling? What's your main concern at the moment? What's going on in your life? What can I, and once again, coming back to servant leadership directly, what can I do? What can I do to help serve you, to help you transition back into this different ways of working as quickly as possible? So absolutely, it's a really important part to them. And also clarify what they believe their objectives are and what their goals should be. And once again, you might need to do that. Bring humor into the team. Laughter is very important. Absolutely. I'm available for poor stand-up gigs if you're ever interested. But yeah, that is really important. Make sure people feel part of something bigger, and also that they actually feel that they can relax into that. That doesn't mean sleeping and snoozing, that they can actually feel that they can be themselves, do their best work. Restate the vision and purpose, encourage people to talk about it. Good. Just remember, when we're talking about restating, it might be a question of reworking based on what's happened in the last three or four weeks, but I'd agree with that one. Start with why. Once again, if you've never come across the Simon Sinek book, Start With Why, there's a great TED talk on it. It's 19 minutes long. I suggest you invest in that. And it'll just give you a bit of an insight. Buy his book, get hold of a book summary if you don't have time. It's available on audiobooks as well. But that will really help you understand why that is at the center of everything. Be clear with what's discussed and have it written down. Good. Once again, one thing, if anyone's gone through our sessions before, we talk about doing a team charter when you were working virtually. Redo it, right? Now we're coming back in and we've got different ways of working. What are the expectations we have of each other? What do your team expect of you? What do they need from you? What do they want from you? Okay. Mindstorming, brainstorming, getting some ideas on the table, as long as, once again, bear in mind, you're the leader of the team, right? So you've got to be making sure that you're pigeon-tailing into the corporate structure or the corporate strategy and goal setting, okay? One-on-one sessions really important. Reevaluate the purpose, absolutely. And once again, I like that word. It's just the last one, I just glanced at, is there carefully, yeah? So once again, bringing understanding, empathy, and respect to the table when you have those conversations, okay? Some people might not think that their goals have changed and their goalposts have moved. So, you know, once again, that's a conversation, not to go, well, how can you think that? It's about making sure people do understand that we've gone through some kind of a transition. So that's great. Thank you very much for sharing. There's some really good ideas that I'm going to steal and claim as my own now. So I appreciate that, doing my work for me. So when we talk about communication, we've talked about some of these before. So this is what you need to be thinking, questions you ask yourself. Have I communicated clear and linked goals? Now, if you haven't seen our session before where we covered off goal setting, what we talk about linked goals is your organizational strategy. How does your team goals link into that? How do individual goals and activities build on that? Okay, so we go strategic, tactical, tactical. So once again, you may be, and you could be in any role from ops, HR to sales. I would almost guarantee that what you were supposed to be doing at the beginning of the year has shifted and changed. Might not be completely gone. Maybe you've just had stuff added to your plate. But the next thing then to think about is, have I communicated those? do I know what they are myself? Maybe you need to go to your leader and have that conversation to reframe before you go any further. Once again, we talked about asking questions. So what do people want to know? What do they need from me? How can I best serve them? And what information can I provide? You might have had a briefing from your management that you think, okay, well, there's some things in there that I'm not in a position to share, but what information can I provide to help people transition back in very, very quickly? And then the last thing, I talked about this with virtual leadership, communication and working rhythms. And have you built them in regularly enough? And you want to have these. Your communication rhythms should be like the heartbeat of your team, okay? Now, this is what, and I'm sure some of you would have seen this before because I've just used the same slide, but this is what I recommend. Weekly kickoff meeting, 60 minutes maximum. As you can see, I'm still using Zoom, but if you've got half of the people back in the office, have half of them in the room, have half of them on Zoom. But really what you want to be doing is having a regular agenda. This is what we do, and I think it works well. And people that have adopted this have said, I've had a couple of phone calls saying it's really helped them. Personal check-ins. Once again, we want to make sure we're connecting with people as human beings. We then review any software that we use to track activity, whether that's your sales CRM or project management or whatever it might be. Big rocks for the week. So what are we tackling? And then we have a daily huddle, which consists of a 15-minute conversation. And we do this every day. What did you do yesterday? What did you do today? What barriers or impediments are you facing? Now, servant leadership, that question delivers everything. What do you need from me to move everything out of your way so you can get your job done? How do I make it easier for you to do? Whether that is tools, communication, introductions to people. Maybe you need support. If you're in sales, maybe you've come across an objection because of the market at the moment you've never come across before. I might not have the answer, but guess what I'm willing to do? I'm willing to sit down and maybe grab a couple of our team members together and we'll hash that out, we'll role play it, we'll brainstorm it, we'll give you the tools to be able to do that. So what are the barriers or impediments you're facing? So like I said, you may need to change the way that your communications and rhythms are built into your week and your day, but it's really important you do that, okay? And then once again, monthly one-to-ones. If you're still working virtually, I always recommend checking in with people at least every 2 weeks. I'm saying that, I think, I'm looking at Ben, I think we haven't had a check-in for 3 weeks now because of Eid and everything else, so we're due one. But that's an important thing to do, is to make sure if you haven't had that as part of your daily or your monthly management practice, everyone gets one-to-one time with you. It only needs to be 30 minutes a month. And I appreciate if you've got 10 people in your team, yes, that's 5 hours you have to dedicate to your team. But guess what? The more you invest in the team, the easier your job becomes. That's the crux of it, okay? So the next thing is about availability. And this is just a really quick point because what I want to tell you here, it's not about being available to your teams 24/7. You're familiar with the concept of that open door policy, and I'm available whenever you need. If you've got people who are working virtually, communicate to them when you're available and when you're not available to them. They can't see you. If you've got half the team that can see you sitting at your desk or maybe you have your own little office, tell them, guys, look, if my door's shut, it's not me being rude. I just need to focus, right? That's a problem I have. I'm kind of easily distracted. If my door's open, please walk in and disturb me if you need me for anything. So what are the ways that you're going to interact with your team? If they want to see you, do you want them to email you first, drop you a quick message on whether it's a Slack type platform or WhatsApp, or do you just want them to walk in? What you then have to understand is how does that interrupt and mess with your flow? So one of the problems, like we said, was about the lack of human was about the lack of linked clear goals. What about this one? As a leader, what can you now think about doing that's going to deliver against people's need for human interaction? So please bear in mind, certainly not even by law yet can you have everyone in the office at the same time. Now, there's going to be some people that will be easier to transition back in the office. There's some people that are going to need more time. But everyone, whether you're introverted greatly or you're a massive extrovert, do need to interact with other people. Now, they might have been locked up with their family for all of this time, but the important thing is how do we now start ingratiating people back into a team environment where we come together as one? So I'm going to shut up for a second and give you a minute or two just to give me a couple of ideas about this. Once again, no right or wrong. There is no right or wrong. I'm just looking for some ideas. You're all intelligent people. I know that because you're listening to me speak. So I'll just give you a minute to give me some ideas on that. Okay, social media interactions. Okay, yep. It's obviously typed by a millennial. Once again, that's a really nice way of staying in touch with people, particularly if you've got a locked in, a platform that's locked away, whether it's on LinkedIn or Facebook that's just for your group. Everyone can give his or her idea, of course. I'm sure that's what you meant to write. Ask them what they would like. Yeah, team builder. Once again, doing those team build activities, you can do them virtually as well. And if you're interested, give us a shout. That's not a sales pitch, but it's one of the things that we can help you do. Online gaming is really cool. Once again, just don't get obsessed with it. But I know that some people have been literally playing things like Call of Duty, or I've got one client who's all their team members play Minecraft. So they've built this whole little world together over the last 6 weeks. They just do an hour a week on it, but then they can go and do things together. And that's been a really nice thing for them, because they had some people that had never played it before. And you can download it on your phone or an iPad, so you don't even need a particular gaming console. Yep. Ask what their needs is. Huddles, once again, really important. Socializing activity after official meeting. Always, always, always. And once again, in a year's time, once we're back to some form of normality, keep that part of your rhythm, some kind of personal check-ins. Good. Watch movies or series together via Zoom. Awesome. There's also, these things called, I think they're called watch parties now on Facebook, where you can watch a movie and everyone can just sit there and watch it together. Last week, my sons are 10 and 6. And anyone that's similar age to me and probably the same gender as me, I then had this amazing opportunity to introduce them to the Rocky movies. So we watched one every single night last week. And the next day they were out working out every day, and kind of had that impact that had on me. But the nice thing about that is like, I was putting stuff on Instagram, and as I put it, I saw Sylvester Stallone, and he did a Rocky watch party, and he had like 3 million people on Facebook when they were screening Rocky on there as well. So once again, it's a nice thing to do. I've just seen one on there, which is such a minor thing, but such a powerful thing. A quick "how are you" over a call. That's really critical. Give people a call. Forget about work. Forget about productivity. If you've got a bit of major feedback to give them, don't worry about giving it. It might not be that important. Have a quick check-in. How are you? What's going on? What can I do to help? Keep that servant leadership mind at the front of your mindset. But that's a really important one. I'm not talking about ringing people every day. That might even become a little bit stalkery, but at least, once every couple of weeks, just have a check-in to make sure people know that you think about them, okay? Forget about work, be more human. That's one thing I really hope comes out of this for everybody. The fact that we are human beings, not human doings. So it's not just about work, that we do need to be more connected as people, as a species, for a better word. We need to be more compassionate. We need to be more understanding. And that is a really important piece for me. So it's certainly something that I would like to see carry through from my behavior, although I don't think I was that far out of it. But I think if we can just get a little bit more understanding that's going to make the world generally a better place. Cool. Okay, so a couple minutes left. So I'm just going to nip into these ones. Penultimately, encouragement. Okay, those check-in and how are you calls, they're really nice ways of encouraging people and making them feel that they're part of something bigger than themselves. If you've got feedback to give and you have a daily team meeting and it's positive, give that feedback publicly. If you've got feedback to give and it's developmental, give that privately, of course. But what you want people to do is feel like that they are delivering, that they are actively, actively engaging, but actively participating and contributing to the team and the organization as a whole, okay? Last question for you, and this is the last one. Once again, as a leader, thinking about putting people's needs before your own, what can you be doing at this point in time to combat the potential for burnout? Now, just to clarify, when I'm talking about burnout there, I can't tell you the amount of conversations I've had with people over the last 6 to 8 weeks where they feel that they don't know where their home ends and their work begins. I've had people say, I'm doing 15-hour days, and that's not what I would usually do. The amount of people that said, I'm working more now than I would done at home. Okay. Once again, don't be the shit. I'd love to know who's writing this, because there is a definite theme there that we could turn into a really good leadership book. Spread positivity. Okay. All right, good. Once again, if you want to give me some ideas of how we can spread positivity, that'd be a nice one. Allow them more flexibility in when they work and when they rest. Okay, that's a nice one. If once again, you have been able to build more secure a more secure feeling about yourself as a leader in the last few weeks, because you don't feel the need to make sure you know what everyone's doing all the time. That's a really nice thing. Think about those behaviors you said at the beginning would be the behaviors you would want the best managers or the best managers you have. Know when it's safe to log, or I think that's log off, log og, but yeah, when it's safe to log up, yeah. And force people to log off as well. If you're a leader and you can still whatever it is on a Google Doc or a shared doc, we're still working at 8 o'clock, pick up the phone. So if you don't get off your worktop or laptop, I'm going to sack you. Make that happen, right? Help them set routines, lead by example. Yeah, that's really important. Look, if you're telling people, look, 6 o'clock, guys, I want you to not be working, but they're getting emails and phone calls and messages from you at 9, 10, 11 o'clock, I tell you now, all that's going to do is lead them to feel pressured to be doing the same thing. So lead by example, right? Have a coffee or beer or both at the same time, whatever your preference. Yeah, encourage team building activity, not work related. Absolutely great. Don't bother them after work. Be really critical about that. The only reason I'm ever going to contact my team, after hours, and I do it every so often, and it always starts with an apology for me, because I feel extremely guilty when I do that, is something that I've either forgotten about or has suddenly become urgent for me. But then again, that's my problem. Okay. Ignite's Locked-In Learning. I'll call that one out. Thank you very much. I think we've got 15 episodes. There's good 15 hours of content. Strict rules for sticking to work hours. Don't respond to non-urgent. Yeah, absolutely. The problem with that is that people will tell you everything is urgent. And if you went through the one where we talked about time management and productivity, and we introduced the Eisenhower matrix, which is urgent, important, we can put that in. Everyone to feel the leader in a special task. Okay, good. So giving that opportunity for people to lead. Whether it has that impact or not, one easy thing that we do is when we do our weekly and daily meetings, different people run those every week. So this week it's Oliver's turn. I think, Ben, it's your turn next week. And then I think it's Kevin after that. So once again, it gives people that sense of control. It also means I don't have to do everything, right? So it's for selfish reasons as well, but don't tell anyone that. Send them on treasure hunts around the house, search for things of the alphabet. Yeah, look, that's some really cool things to do. And you can get specific with things as well. You can get the quite obscure things. And when you've got 12 to 15 people on the call and you give them something obscure, it's quite funny when someone turns up and they have one. Ask for a to-do list, yet know when it takes long. Have a Kit Kat, yeah, have a break, have a Kit Kat, relax. Also, the other thing is what I would say to you generally, be kind to yourself and give you permission to be okay with actually, you have those days, even if you're sitting at your desk where you don't get productive for whatever reason. That's okay, all right? All you got to know is that if that's going on for a period of time, there's probably a bigger issue at play. And I'll be honest, I talked to Ben this morning. I had that day yesterday. I had a few things. Some of it was a little bit feeling of being overwhelmed, coming back from time off over Eid and a lot to do. And I got a few things off my plate, but I just thought, I just can't get my head in the game today. So I gave myself permission to be okay with that. And today I've come back full of energy and full of beans with it. Okay, be mindful of home situation, wife, kids, pets, homeschooling as well. Please bear in mind, just because you're going back to work, kids are still at school. They're not going back till September. There is even whispers of that going on till January, but don't freak out. Nothing's been announced till then. So please be aware, you might not have kids, but you need to empathize with people that have. Good. Last thing that I'm going to give you is the opportunity, or sorry, the ability for you, or the mindfulness of you to create opportunities for your team. And that is for other people to grow, to do things differently, to take on more roles, to share their workload, to train other people, okay? Once again, the questions I would ask you to consider is, what can you do to create opportunities for people to do the work they love? This is how we create engagement. Can the people get to do the jobs? And it doesn't mean they don't do the stuff they don't like as well, but do they get to do what they love every day? Do they get the opportunities to do what they're best at every day? And that's your role to make sure that's happening. How can you create your opportunities for your team to work together? Just because they're not working all in the same place at the moment doesn't mean that can't happen. Get people on Zoom, get people on mini projects, get them on tasks where they have to interact, right? Oh my God, I was obviously, maybe I'd had a coffee and a beer when I wrote this. What opportunities are there to promote or promoto growth and training? The obvious answer from my point of view is, well, give us a call. We'll come in and we'll run some sessions for you on Zoom. But think about that. What is it that I might need to now upskill or transfer skills into people because of what we're having to do maybe a little bit apologies for that. So, I mean, look, I was literally just wrapping up anyway and moving into this. So you know, kind of my last slide here is really about the mindset of becoming a new part of the new breed of leader. The workforce fundamentally has changed in the last 20 years, you know, even since I've been in it, even though I'm how young I am. And if you think, you know, you've got a whole generation of millennials now that are basically fully in the workforce that we've been talking about for years. Now you've got another generation coming through that are going to make, you know, millennials look easy. So how do we do this in, you know, give them the best opportunities to grow? And it really is about thinking about putting people first and becoming that new breed of leader. It's about advancing other people. If your mindset is getting other people, as I said, to get ahead of you in your career, I can't see that ever being the case. Okay, so I'd recommend that in the way we go forward. So just before we do wrap up, Ben, I'm not too sure. I haven't checked the chat. Is there any questions that have come in, or comments, or any feedback, or anything that we need to address?
No, nothing. No questions.
Okay. So once again, that means one of two things. Either I've covered everything off in amazingly great fashion, or no one's been interested in anything I've said. But I think we've kept most people here for the majority of the call. Look, the last thing I'm going to ask you to do, as we always do, I really appreciate everyone's been here today. I hope we've added a little bit of value. Please bear in mind what we do in these sessions is just a snippet of what we can do for you and your organizations. You know, these are sessions that we do for free to offer some value to our community. But if you or your organization is interested in doing something like a deeper dive, like this, for example, is one of a 4-part module that we do. We can run it virtually. We can even run some of it face-to-face now. Ooh. But if that's something that you think you might be interested in, your organization might be interested in, please let us know. And we can have that conversation, because just like you, we're out there looking to get our business up and running again and get some commercial activity moving and you know, help keep us all in jobs as well. So yeah, so look, if you found value in what we've got today, I'd love to hear about it. If there's anything that you think I could have done differently or better to improve your experience, once again, please don't pull any punches. I'm not precious. I am generally here to offer what I can, but also to grow myself as well. So just before I do wrap up, there might not be any in the chat. Does anyone have any questions or comments they'd like to verbalize before we move to wrap up today?
Awkward silence means no.
Absolutely, that's my awkward 10 seconds of silence there. Okay, so cool. So we just have those. Okay, yep, so I've got a couple of things. Mohammed, thank you very much for your feedback. That's a nice one. And yeah, I've got someone else that's messaging me privately. Yeah, we can do that. I'm not going to say who you are, but you know who you are. I'm going to just reply to it. Okay, and there we go. Good. Well, if there's nothing else, you can, like I said, you can either open up or just put it in the chat. But with that being said, I will then just move to wrap up. Even though the screen's going to go, the survey's still available on poll everywhere. I'd really appreciate your feedback on that. And I wish you all the best. Stay safe, keep washing your hands, and we will look forward to seeing you, hopefully sometime face to face. I might even get to high five some of you guys. If not, we'll see you virtually in the future. But look after yourselves, look after your families first and foremost, then look after your jobs and look after your people. Stay safe, everyone. Thank you very much.